These games are a straight-up embarrassment, and Game Freak should be ashamed for shipping them. While Scarlet and Violet are an evolution of the series formula, the experience is tarnished at every turn by a poor-performing release with awful design decisions, and fans should demand more. Welcome everybody, my name is Doragon, and this is my Pokémon Scarlet and Violet review. I don't quite know where to start with this review. Most of what I have to say about the games is deservedly on the negative side of the spectrum. But, that being said, I've actually really enjoyed the game, and I hope to see the formula used again and advanced upon in the future. So we're going to have to deep a little deeper into my feelings. And let's start with those negative thoughts, because there are a lot to get through. Now, I didn't expect much coming into this release. Despite a huge refresh of the Pokémon formula in January 2022 with Legends Arceus, that was in essence a spin-off game, and I knew that we shouldn't expect gameplay, story, or mechanical advancements from that release to bleed into Scarlet and Violet a mere 10 months later, considering Scarlet and Violet had been in development for at least 3 years already when Arceus launched. Now, there are certain aspects that did bleed into the 9th generation game though. The open world, for example, the overworld Pokémon, the general ball throwing mechanic. They were all shifted into the mainline release, but all felt toned down slightly from Arceus. That ball throwing, for example, didn't result in an attempted Pokémon capture. It just entered you into a battle to then try and capture them after wearing them down, as has been the case in every mainline release previously. The same as if I'd just run into the Pokémon or encountered it in the grass. But due to the camera in Scarlet and Violet, the battle and catching experience was far worse than any from previous games. Camera design in this game is at best lazy. So when you enter battle, even though there are plenty of occasions that the battle does get framed as in previous generations, like Sword and Shield for example, we instead more often than not are treated to a look underneath the map, which is rather sparse. If we do stay above the map though, there are so many occasions that I couldn't see what was going on at all, because the camera seems to think that being in front of my Pokémon or right up its butt is an appropriate place to be. What irks me most about this scenario though, is that Game Freak already solved it 10 months ago in Legends Arceus, where the camera remained on the player character at all times, and they could run around freely while the battle was taking place. Considering the vast similarities between the games, the obvious parallel developments and shared mechanics, and the good quality of that Legends release, to see a core and basic mechanic such as the game's camera be drastically worse in the later release, when other design factors from Legends are present front and centre and done well in these mainline games, is hugely disappointing and a big negative for the game experience. The camera that we have in Violet and Scarlet feels like a devolution. It feels like a backward step. And considering I've never spoken about the camera design in any other review, it tells you how impactful to the experience this poor implementation really is. And the open world doesn't help with the situation either. Without the stylized traditional Japanese art style of Arceus, it was very disappointing. It was big, sure, and a full open world rather than Arceus's open zones, but it was empty. And it was ugly. Textures, if you can call them such a thing, looked terrible. Now, I'd liken them to previous gens because of their low poly count and copy-paste everywhere ethos. But to say it is like they'd been lifted from N64 era titles is a disservice to many N64 era titles. Back then, games utilised the limitations of the hardware superbly and offered you a visual experience that probably shouldn't have been available given the hardware's limitations. But in 2022, what are the excuses? We could point at the Switch being underpowered as a 10-year-old Android tablet, but look at Xenoblade Chronicles 3, that looks like it is from a completely different hardware generation, with beautiful textures and character models, with a massive, open, living, vibrant world. Look at Monster Hunter Rise, a 2-year-old game that could just as easily be a latter PS4 or Xbox One title. In fact, it has a January 2023 PS5 and Xbox Series consoles release. The Switch, despite being aged, is still capable, and multiple developers have proven that in recent years. Even Game Freak themselves just 10 months earlier. But Scarlet and Violet, they used stock JPEGs for much of their textures in this game. Add in that the world has horrific pop-in of Pokémon, structures, NPCs, and even those awful textures throughout the entire game. Basically anything that wasn't the player character popped in or flickered like Christmas lights. And it detracts from what this open world was trying to deliver through poor performance and visuals. And it points once again to lazy design and implementation. For example, areas of the map warped shape as you approached or left them. Assets on screen like NPCs, windmills, Pokémon, and I honestly think that's about it for other things that moved in the open world. We're at incredibly low frame rates. I noticed it constantly with the naked eye. Digital Foundry found the entire game dipped to single-digit frame rates regularly. The overworld Pokémon were pretty decent though, barring the pop-in and 2 frames per second. Most of my complaints, they eventually come down to something that is far too familiar in the industry at the moment. Companies releasing unfinished products. That is what Scarlet and Violet are. They're unfinished. This means they come with a list of bugs, problems, challenges, caveats and annoyances as long as any I've ever seen. And it's all because many of these factors were simply not finished by the time the game was launching. From the awful textures and long load times, to input lag from connected Joy-Cons, to running twice as fast if you have 2 controllers connected, to characters morphing into giant monstrosities like Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, to falling through the map or getting stuck inside of a cliff. Even the odd, not safe for work moment. There are horrific issues with many aspects of this game, wherever you look. And these aren't contained issues either, that only appear for some people some of the time. No. Every game encounters terrible pop-in, terrible load times, terrible clipping, terrible frame rates, and crashes throughout the entire playthrough. You watch any content creator's footage of this game, and regardless of what they are showing, it is flickery and choppy. You can watch 2 different videos of the same moment from the game, and graphically, it feels like completely different games depending what textures and assets have decided to load and what haven't. There are those who have had a horror game experience with just faces wandering around their game world, and those who are bartering with Game Freak to see if they can buy some additional frames for many of the on-screen assets. My experience, however, was worse. In fact, for a long time, it was completely unplayable. No matter how I tried to control the console, whether with official or third-party controllers, Joy-Cons attached or detached, Pro Controller or any other method, there was input lag so bad that I could set the controller down after pressing the button before my character took the action I had told them to take on screen. As you can appreciate, trying to move around an open world and take or avoid encounters with input lag that bad, regardless of my input method, was far from a fun and rewarding, or even possible, experience. Now I eventually was able to play the game, but I could only play it in handheld mode and with the Bimbok third-party Joy-Cons attached. If I connected the official ones, the input lag returned. And this was a Pokémon Violet specific issue. Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Pokémon Sword, Knockout City, I tried all of these games to see if it was a controller issue. And regardless of input method, or if the console was in handheld or docked mode, they all worked flawlessly. But for me, Violet could only be played handheld with $70 third-party Joy-Cons, making this a $130 game that I couldn't play on my television. This is a first-party Nintendo game. This is only made for Nintendo consoles, and right now, the only Nintendo console is the Switch. Game Freak only have one platform to develop for. A platform that they have developed 4 other releases for, that, while they all have their weaknesses, they all at least ran well. So what is the excuse for Scarlet and Violet's awful performance? I've mentioned the word lazy a couple of times now in relation to aspects of this game, and in a broad sense, much of the design and implementation is indeed lazy. I'm not saying the individual developers are lazy here, far from it. I know these people work hard, but the executive decisions that have led to this release are the bare minimum required to classify as a video game. But I'm wondering if maybe that's the most that they could achieve. You see, open worlds are hard to design and make run well. Look at any Bethesda or Ubisoft game. All have hilarious and game-breaking bugs. All run terribly in one way or another. They can still be fun and enjoyable, but that doesn't stop them being badly designed or made. Pokémon Scarlet and Violet feel the same, and I think it is likely a confluence of events that have caused this to happen. It starts with a skill set. A skill set that the development team at Game Freak don't appear to have. It then comes to timing. Timing that is incredibly strict for a Pokémon release, because if the game is late, the entire franchise is then late. The toys, trading card game, and anime, they all rely on the game releases to advance. So as a developer in that situation, you reskin what came before, add a tiny advancement, change the gimmick, and release on time no matter what. Whether this is true for this release or not, I can't say. This is mere speculation on my part. But if it is true, Game Freak tried to do more than they're capable of in this particular release. Want to know why I feel this way? Look at the UI. It's Microsoft Paint basic, to the point of being really jarring having played any Pokémon game previously. Beat-em-ups, for example, made the health bar on stream in 17 seconds flat. The battle screen is so simplistic, I'm pretty sure that I could draw it on my tablet, and this is my quality of art. Where has the time investment gone in this release, Game Freak? Coming back to that open world for a bit, the map is a hideous mess. It never orients the same way when opening it. There is no legend and there's no way to see which direction you're facing upon it, which makes navigation around the game world unnecessarily obtuse. But these factors are all things that Game Freak managed to successfully implement on an original Game Boy. But on the Switch, apparently over 25 years of experience in design weren't used, and an approximation was slapped together and thrown haphazardly into the game, making yet another basic feature that I normally don't address a pain point in this release. Due to the size and navigation issues of the open world, pacing is all over the show as well. As an example, after completing my playthrough, I was watching Massive League Gaming play live on Twitch. He had done none of the team star bases and was running through them all one after the other with a team of level 64 Pokémon. And it was boring him completely. This should have been a really engaging exercise, as it is one of the main story branches done in one fell swoop. But each base was exactly the same setup and challenge. Once you actually got there, which was a challenge in and of itself given the aforementioned map issues. It was exacerbated by every encounter, every fight being minutes of racked up animations for stats rising and lowering, confusion, status effects, weather effects, and so on. What could have been a quick fight then onto the story turned into a slog for him. Because for some reason or another, you can't turn battle animations off in this game. Another feature that has been around for over 25 years, strangely omitted from this title. But his exacerbation of boredom was made worse yet again by there being fully animated cutscenes with no voice acting. Like seriously, this is a cutscene from the game. This is what they sound like throughout. Despite there being a setting to skip cutscenes that Massive League Gaming had turned on, the setting never seemed to kick in. So after a slog to get to a Team Star base, there was then a slog to defeat it, followed by a slog to get through the story content thereafter, which was all reading, which he couldn't just do in his head because he had people watching him. This was a lifelong Pokémon fan I was watching completely check out of the engagement factor of the game because of poor design decisions. And the list of these issues keeps going. But rather than bore you or drone on like a broken record, I'm just going to highlight some of the more egregious issues now. So the whole Team XP share has completely nullified any challenge that these games present. They've never been the most challenging unless you count the Red Battle from the Gold era. But you can't even inflict self-imposed challenges without massive workarounds anymore, making these entries permanently set to very easy mode. I've spoken about pacing mildly, but add in that you can tackle the world technically in any order, that pacing suffers further, especially when there is no level scaling. You can enter one area too early and get absolutely dominated. Or, as I did, you could take on the technical first gym last and be 70 levels above your foe. Despite having lore that says gym leaders adjust their gym tests based on how many badges a trainer has, this hasn't been implemented in the game, and it can result in jarring challenges or really poor pacing, having to retrace your steps, go somewhere else, train up and come back later, while you end up dominating other gyms or team star bases along the way. The branching narratives can really hurt pacing too, as nothing is placed along specific routes to advance the narratives at an equal pace. As I did once again, you can find that you've completed one entire storyline, while the other two are either part done or not even started. And the narratives, they aren't equal in weight either. I found the Titan story so much more engaging, helping two Pokémon to regain their full strength, than any of the others. It was actually a well-written emotional tale with fair stakes, and it leads directly into one of the best stories Pokémon has seen in many, many years. But the champion story? It's as bare bones as it can be. This is it. You ready? I'm your new friend and you should become a champion like me. That's it. That's the whole driving force behind it, and it never grows beyond that. It very much feels like an afterthought. This main thing from every Pokemon game previously is an afterthought in Scarlet and Violet. Team Star could have been interesting, but being overly laboured, as mentioned earlier, detracts from the entire message of that story. And these two stories, they don't easily or happily lead into the Area Zero story, which you can only do after completing all three of the main branching quests. Now, Area Zero is actually a really good story, though, once again, it would be far better with voice acting, given much of the story comes through dialogue while you are navigating the world. Now, as stupid as it sounds, it is actually difficult to read white subtitles on a bright background while moving forward in the world and avoiding Pokemon battles so that those subtitles continue, so that you continue reading the story. It's really difficult. Like, Pokemon is the singular most profitable entertainment franchise in the world. It is worth more than Disney. Game Freak, hire some voice actors for the love of your fans and story. My final big gripe is with settings. Now, some of this may have come from just playing God of War Ragnarok and the amazing array of settings that game provided that were inclusive of all abilities. But this is the Pokemon Violet settings page. I can't even adjust the camera sensitivity. I can't adjust the battle style, the animations, subtitle colour or size, which for a game that tells its entire story through subtitles only, is blatantly dumb and downright unacceptable. I wouldn't even call these settings bare bones. There's literally nothing to them. You can't adjust the game in any meaningful or impactful way to improve the experience. It has a settings page, but the only thing it should be making headlines for is how unpopulated and uninclusive it is in 2022. So, now that we all feel crap after that negativity dump, let's bring the mood up with the positives that this game brings to the table. Now, Pokemon has endured for as long as it has thanks to its two core principles. Gotta catch 'em all, and I wanna be the very best, like no one... Sorry, I'll stop singing now. These are still front and centre in Scarlet and Violet, and after some mild adjustment for the new open-worldiness of these concepts, they do remain as engrossing and engaging as they were in 1996. While there is no national dex here yet, there are enough funky, cool, or overpowered Pokémon from the new generation to keep you switching your team out constantly. The only reason I entered the Elite Four fights with a team that had any sort of balance and cohesion to it was because I had forced myself to do so from about level 45. But I could have just as easily walked into that fight with a team of 6 brand new Muns just to see what happened. I think this is one of the better generations overall in terms of new Pokémon. All of the starters are super strong. There's no disadvantage, other than aesthetics, for which one you choose and run through the game with. And in their final evolution, all have incredibly powerful signature moves. They feel legendary in their power, and that's great. There are typings that have been super rare, never seen before, reserved for box legendaries or not seen for a long time in these new mons, such as Dragon Ice, Steel Fairy, Flying Electric. They cover vast typing bases in terms of both attack and defense, and the models range from, oh, it's super cute, I must have that, through to the most badass thing I have ever seen. I mean, come on. It's a dragon with a sword on its back. The actual creature designs and usefulness really deliver in this game. Now, despite my gripes about most of the settings being non-existent, autosave being a feature, with the bugs and crashes we've mentioned previously, was a beautiful and game-saving addition. Just ask Mr. Fruit what happened if you turned that setting off.
No, nothing's listening to me, and I can't even catch any of the Pokemon I want to catch now.
Yeah. So what Titan do you want to go to next?
I'm in front of Team Star.
To put that in perspective, that's about 2 hours.
I personally loved the Area Zero story. Now, I played Violet, so I haven't seen the alternate story with the Pokemon from the past in Scarlet, but I don't expect it to be any different really, judging by previous gen stories. This was a human story, with characters that we had mostly formed a strong connection with, even if we'd been explicitly told by the game that we'd formed these connections with a couple of them, that had real emotional stakes. I wanted to protect these friends my avatar had made, and with my super strong team, I felt that I could. Facing off against someone so dear to one of those friends though, as a rather final option, brought a genuine emotional reaction from me. Nothing huge. I wasn't sat there crying at the screen like in God of War Ragnarok or Stray, but I could have been with a couple of minor adjustments to the way the game was made. There are some excellent quality of life improvements for this generation as well. The ability to select a Pokemon and immediately put it in the lead of your party was so welcome. Breeding has been put fully into the hands of the trainer with no need to visit a nursery, etc., and it makes the experience swifter and more user-friendly, and so much more grindable for those who want to do so. Fast travel has been upgraded drastically from Sword and Shield, allowing many locations in a single region to become fast travel points, rather than the singular spot from the last game. And it does make navigation of the map far easier than it could have otherwise been. It's stupid, isn't it? I was able to give you fault after fault and go into depth on them. But I feel like I've run out of positives already. More fast travel points and a swifter breeding scheme, they don't really have more depth to discuss. They are what they are, and they're good. But with only being able to say what the positives are and not offer more depth, it seems to skew the conversation overtly towards the negative. But the weight, the impact of these positives is different to the weight of the negatives. The core gameplay loop and mechanics are strong, giving the game a super solid foundation. If that foundation wasn't there, if that foundation didn't work, the game wouldn't work. People wouldn't be able to roll credits. People wouldn't get excited at shinies or legendaries. The gyms would be unbeatable because the game would be unplayable. The Pokédex would never get completed because the collectathon was unrewarding. There are vast swathes of the internet playing and defending these games right now. You don't get that level of fandom and you don't get that level of defense if you don't do something very right. This is a Pokemon game. You know what to expect going in, and you have expectations for how rewarding and engaging that will be. If you are capable of looking past the performance issues, I'd say this is probably one of the most rewarding Pokemon games in recent times. The annoying thing with this game is that I actually enjoyed it. Or at least, I think I did. You see, I've been in this position before where a game has been an utter mess, and despite all that, I thought that I liked it. This was with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Looking at that game a mere month removed though, I saw that there was nothing good in that release. The story, character, world, mechanics, design, all of it was, and still is, awful. But in 2018, I convinced myself that I liked it. I did that because of my nostalgia and love for the series. I liked every Assassin's Creed game that had released pre-Odyssey, and as such, my blind love for the series stood strong within my gaze upon the game. But being slightly removed and more objective, that nostalgic lens slips quickly, and the game crumbles when looked at with clarity. I'm under no illusions right now that Scarlet and Violet are awful games from many, many angles, and we should expect and demand much more from a first-party AAA studio funded by the most profitable franchise in the world. I mean, come on, it's worth more than Disney, guys. You know, Marvel, Star Wars, the whole shebang. It's worth more. But I have taken a lot of enjoyment from the game. I worry that enjoyment isn't real, though. I worry that my enjoyment is based on nostalgia that has built up since 1996 and has nothing to do with this actual release in front of me. For while there are incredibly powerful and awesome Pokemon from this latest generation that I like to use, are they worth this unfinished experience? While Area Zero's story is great, the rest of the game sort of just exists. While there is an endgame of sorts, it's very bare bones, especially compared to older titles in the series. While the core gameplay loop and mechanics are solid, they are hampered at every turn by performance issues. For every positive that I can pull from this release, there is a corresponding and countering negative to nullify its impact. Add in that the negative list is far longer than the positives. On balance, I should probably tell you to steer clear of Scarlet and Violet, and that would be a more official and responsible recommendation. But there is a lot of fun to be had in this game. So I implore you, listen to this review in full, especially if you've just skipped to this conclusion. Here are all of the points that I've outlined, then make your own decision based upon them. If you are looking for a quick recommendation one way or the other from me though, if the performance of a game really matters to you, I'd say stay away from Scarlet and Violet. If you can overlook the bad performance, and a good collectathon and rewarding if aged battle system suits you, then Scarlet and Violet are for you. If, however, you want an old school Pokemon experience that runs flawlessly, it has full co-op through the entire narrative, an engaging campaign, great creature designs and battles with a huge endgame, then spend some less money and buy Temtem instead on your favourite platform. And in the meantime, check out my God of War Ragnarok review here. Thank you for tuning in, guys, and until next time, have yourselves a fantastic day, and take care.